come January of 2020, I was out at a bar with a bunch of friends on a Thursday night, and then I was Ubering home. It was late, and I realized I got in the wrong Uber. And I told the Uber driver, I was like, "Hey, like, this is not my Uber." It was back when they were doing shared rides and stuff. So he dropped me off, and I tried calling another one, but my phone died. So I was like, like I know the city pretty well. I'll just walk home. Well, walking home, I felt what felt like somebody threw a glass beer bottle at the back of my head. And I'm not going to lie, Jeremy, I was really, really drunk. I don't remember a whole lot of it, but it felt like somebody had threw a glass beer bottle at the back of my head, and it just splattered on the backside of my head and ear. And it was wet and it was cold. So I reached back and I realized I was bleeding. And then I started freaking out because my entire shirt was just covered in blood. And I was like, holy crap. Like, I didn't know what was going on. It was definitely not a good situation. So I started flagging people down, trying to see if anybody would pick me up and take me to an emergency room. And nobody stopped. And then I got about, I don't know, I was probably maybe 4 or 5 blocks from Del Setton, and some Uber driver, I'm assuming he was an Uber driver, he stopped over, opened his side door, pulled me in his car, and then dropped me off at Del Setton. And I walked in, and my first thought was like I need help. Like I was drunk. I was just slurring a bunch of stuff. I said I was attacked, and they brought me into a room, sat me down. They put me on medication to calm me down and help with the pain. And then a nurse and a detective came in, and they said that they thought that I was involved in a series of stabbings that happened in downtown earlier that night, where 7 people were stabbed. And I was like, what? Like, my thought like, it's just, that's not where my brain went whenever this happened. So it's like, in my mind, I was like, you're kidding. Like, and I was high because they put me on pain pills and stuff. But it was such a weird thing for my brain to process because I was still drunk, and like so much had happened over the course of the 6 hours from when it happened to when I was in the emergency room. It was a lot. And they ended up stitching me up. They gave me the contact with the police department, and they said somebody was going to be in touch. So they stitched up my ear. Oh, I didn't even show you. They got me in the back side of my head, and then it went through the cartilage of my ear.
That's a big scar.
Yeah.
Just like that, they took a chunk out.
It took a chunk out.
So they just fucking stabbed you.
I have a picture. When you see it, you can literally see my ears like this because it was just the whole bottom half was just hanging down.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did it go through your skull?
It didn't. No. So it actually bounced off, I guess, that bone or ligament right there, and then it went through. So the way the nurse described was, I was really lucky because if it had gone inward, it could have easily paralyzed me, killed me, paralyzed me in a lot of other areas. There's so many different things that could have happened with that attack. So,
Jesus.
So the doctor pretty much said I was very lucky that it went the way it did because I just left with stitches. And the thing that killed me about this whole situation was the other UT student that was stabbed with a girl. If I'm remembering correctly, she had paralysis on partially the whole left side of her body. Wow. So me knowing what I've been through, what I've done, like, I didn't have the best image of myself as a person, just because of my past. So I felt guilty in a way. I'm like, well, why am I the one who just walked away with stitches when this girl who's doing everything right, great student, sorority, just a good person, is going to have to go through months and months of rehab from this situation. Meanwhile, I just get sent home with stitches and a bottle of painkillers. So that whole thought just blew up my head. It just made me feel like a really shitty a shitty person in general. And I went into a bad depression from that.
Damn. So there's some psycho just running around stabbing people. Did they ever catch that guy?
It was a woman, actually. What? They did catch her, and they ended up releasing her during the pandemic because she was unfit to stand trial.
What does that even mean? Like, she just...
mentally crazy. I don't know. Like, gosh. I think some of it had to do with the jailhouses being overflowed. Jeez. I'm not too sure, but...
That's wild, dude.
Definitely.
And how long did this happen after you, got clean, went to rehab and all that initially?
So this happened in 2020, beginning of 2020, January, and I went to rehab April 27th of 2017.
Okay, so about 3 years.
Yeah, about 3 years. So I spent all that time getting myself back together. I mean, granted, I was still drinking. I kicked a lot of the hard stuff, and I was building myself up again. I was learning who I was again. I was finding myself again. I was getting happy.
So did that this whole knife attack, did that like reset you like back to kind of where you were 3 years prior?
Yeah, it did because they sent me home with pain pills and I was so confused by the entire situation. My initial thought was like, I can numb this out. I was just taking more of these pain pills. So I finished that script in like 4 days. And then after that, I ended up going out that weekend and I relapsed. I got some cocaine. I went out and partied. And then my thought process was if I just spiraled and I just numbed out, I wouldn't have to think about it. I wouldn't have to face it or figure out what happened, or it was just an easy way to shut it out, which is not a very good reaction, obviously.
I'm sure that was so confusing though, because first off, I mean, you didn't do anything wrong. Like you just get fucking stabbed for no
stumbling
reason.
home, trying to get home.
And then that's questioning of also like why do I deserve to be okay after this? Like you described with the girl having paralysis, like that's a lot to handle within a very short amount of time, you know.
It was a lot, man, and like I just mentally wasn't equipped to handle it, and I'm just being honest. Like I wasn't a very mentally strong person. You know, I was thinking pretty low of myself because of what I had went through initially. So for me, it was just I just didn't want to face it. You know, it was just such a dark time for me. And then throw the pandemic starting 3 months after that was just awful because I wasn't able to communicate or I wasn't able to like socialize with people. Couldn't go home because my dad was a high risk. So I stayed in Austin. 2 of my roommates ended up moving out and going back to their homes. So it was just me and my dog. And then one other friend I had moved in who didn't have anywhere to go. So that whole first 2-3 months was just partying, you know, just being reckless. We thought the world was going to end. So we were like, might as well have fun. Not a great thought process again.
Dude, what a crazy couple of months. Like that's, I think the pandemic obviously just added to all that. Like, clearly, like you probably just thought the fucking, like everything was going to be over. Like the world was ending, like you said.
Genuinely, Jeremy, I thought the world was going to end.
I mean, I don't blame you.
I was like, I really thought the world was over. I was like, well, I might as well just go out in style, which I'll say it 1,000 more times. Not a very good thought process.
How long did you continue that cycle again of using everything?
So that relapse was probably, that was the worst by far.
Really? Worse than the first time around?
Worse than the first time around by far because I didn't just gradually build up to just 2 months of using methamphetamine. It was, all right, well, if I'm going to get high, I'm going to get high. So I started out initially using that. After that first 3 months of just kind of slowly building back into drugs, I just finally said, I'm not going to cuss. I finally said, F it. And I just went and got in touch with that same guy and I got it. And I started playing around with that. I was playing around with those little blue fake Roxy that were pressed with fentanyl. I was playing around with coke, LSD, mushrooms. I mean, I was using anything and everything that would put me on cloud 9. And I was not even thinking about the repercussions that were going to come from whenever I decided to stop because I didn't think I was ever going to stop. So there was a lot of emotions during that year, 2020, that really got me, honestly, really got me to where I'm at now, for being honest, because after the knife attack, I meant to mention this. I reached out to my buddy's dad because I thought like, hey, like I have this new chance at life. Like I want to make the most of it. So this is kind of where I call it my tug of war started because I wanted to get into triathlon. So I reached out to my buddy's dad and I asked him if I could borrow his triathlon bike for the pandemic since I didn't have anything else to do. But I had this other side of me that wanted to party and just be reckless and just be a complete degenerate. So I was still training during all of this. So I wasn't training like you and I do now, but I would go on my bike. I'd ride for 50, 60 miles, didn't have all the special equipment. Then I'd come home and I'd party for a week and I'd come off of everything. And then I would go for a little 3-4 mile run, like whatever I could do. And it was just back and forth, back and forth. Like I knew I wanted to stop, but another part of me wanted to continue going. It was just almost like I had 2 alter egos.
You're just fighting that addiction.
It was fight. Yeah. So for me, I always say like I was definitely controlled by a demon during that time because I knew deep down inside I didn't want that for myself. That was not how I wanted to live my life. But another part of me was just like, it's easier, you know, let's just relax. Let's just fall back into this darkness because that's where I was comfortable. I mean, comfortable in its own word is kind of hard to explain, but that was a state that I was used to being in. So it was just back and forth all of 2020. And it was hard. The nights went from like 2 to 3 nights staying up to 5 to 6 nights of staying up. And I started losing a lot of weight again. I started pretty much turning into a non-human, I guess is the best way to describe it. You just turn into a walking zombie. But November of 2020, my brother had moved down to Austin, and he had called me and said, hey, like, you want to go get lunch on Saturday? And this was Tuesday. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's set it up. I was like, cool. Like, my brother just moved to Austin. We're going to go get lunch. He never called me or hit me up for anything. So Saturday comes around. I had been up since Tuesday, and he knocks on my door, and like, I was so paranoid. I didn't really know what was going on. I was like, who the hell is at my door at 9 o'clock on a Sunday or a Saturday? So I open the door, and he looks at me, and he just shakes his head, and he just starts crying. It just walks away. And that was probably the other moment where I was like, it just sunk my heart in my stomach, just because we have never really had the best relationship. And that get me a little emotional, but we never really had the best relationship, and him going out of his way to go grab lunch with me that was special. Yeah. And for him to look at me like that was another really harsh realization. Like, here I am again. Same thought I was 4 years ago. Like, this is like, what am I doing? And I'm very grateful for him because he called my parents and he let them know, like, something's wrong. Something's not right. He's not himself. Like, y'all need to come up here. 4 hours later, who's at my door? They weren't mad. My parents showed up 4 hours later. They weren't mad at me. I knew what was happening. I just looked at him. I just shook my head. I was like, didn't say anything that entire 2 hours that we packed up. My dad just sat in the room with me while I packed everything up. My mom, she was catering to my dog at the time. And we packed up my school stuff. I was still in school during this whole time. I was never dropped out of my classes or anything. I was still in school. And then they took me back to Houston and just rehabbed me in the living room for a week and a half. And I kicked
at your parents' house?
At my parents' house. Just kicked and screamed. I was irritable. I was pissed all the time. I kept trying to go get more stuff, but I knew that like I needed to fight this through. So I got off of everything cold turkey. And that was probably one of the hardest week and a half, 2 weeks of my entire life. Just the anxiety was awful between that and the pandemic. It was just so many emotions. I was like, man, like I cannot go down this road again. I cannot leave UT again. I can't leave Austin again. Like I've worked so hard to get back to that place. Mm-hmm. This is not where I want to be. So after a week and a half, my parents asked me if I was willing to go back and finish the semester because I'd still been doing some classes online. And so I was like, yeah, I think I can. I just need to finish this semester and then we can talk about getting a little bit more help after that, which kind of a risky scenario, but it worked.
Are there, just go back real quick. Is there like a risk of like withdrawal on that type of stuff? Like if you quit cold turkey, because I know like with alcohol, it can literally kill you if you are so deep into it and you just cut it off. So
with alcohol and like opiates, like hard opiates, like it's definitely dangerous. You definitely need like a medical professional to help wean you off of those things. But for amphetamines, it's just like I told you earlier, it's just head racking anxiety. Your appetite's all out of whack. Like your brain is just your brain doesn't even work, to be honest with you. Like I couldn't put two sentences together to save my life. Wow. It was just, it's doable. It's not dangerous. Mentally it's dangerous and it's hard, but it's doable.
Do you think under your own willpower you could do it? Like, is that possible, or is that addiction just so strong you have to have somebody there to help you?
I could not have done it on my own. 100% couldn't have done it on my own. I mean, my mom and dad, they had so much patience with me during that time. Gosh, gets me emotional thinking about it. I love them, man. I mean, they really are my guardian angels, bro. They put up with so much so I could get clean, and they believed in me getting clean. There's a lot of people in this world who just kind of kick their kids out when they go down that road because they don't want to deal with it. And my parents dealt with it and they faced it. And by the grace of God, I'm here chatting with you today, man. Happy and loving life.
Dude, well, I'm glad you're here, man.
Dude, thank you.